Spencer gets lost. Fog was coming to the island of Sodor. Everyone was getting ready to fight the bad weather. The engines had to make sure their fog lamps were fueled up and working properly. It's always important for engines to wear fog lamps when puffing through the fog. They help the engines to see where they are going. If a fog lamp isn't working, then the engines can get lost and get stranded on the main line. One day, Spencer was puffing to Knapford Station with the Duke and Duchess of Boxford. They were looking at the foggy view through the window. Spencer was puffing his hardest through the fog. His driver was concerned about the fog, but Spencer thought it was no problem for him at all. They soon reached Knapford Station, where the Fat Controller and Lady Hatt were waiting. Spencer's driver slowed him to a stop beside them. "Sorry we're late, sir," said Spencer's driver. "Not a problem," said the Fat Controller. Then he turned to Spencer. "Today, Spencer, you are to take me and Lady Hatt on a trip to Great Waterton Station," he said. "We will go there for a bit and then go on to the summer house when the fog clears up." "Yes, sir," beamed Spencer. He liked taking the Fat Controller with the Duke and Duchess. "Remember, Spencer," added the Fat Controller, "this fog is causing problems for everyone, so you must take care." Spencer sniffed when he heard this. "This fog is no trouble for an engine like me," he puffed. "I'm careful wherever I go." Toby was nearby. He heard Spencer say this. "Don't be so sure, Spencer," he warned. "Fog can often play tricks on us." "Rubbish," huffed Spencer. "Fog is just silly misty cloud. I can easily find my way through." This made Toby cross. He thought Spencer was being boastful. Just then Emily arrived with some empty coaches. She was worried about the fog.
"I don't like this fog," she wheezed. "It can make you get lost."
"Don't be ridiculous," huffed Spencer. "Fog is nothing to be worried about. As long as I arrive at Great Waterton on time, I'll know I'll have beaten the fog."
"That's silly talk," said Toby. "It's always important to take care when you're in the fog."
Emily agreed with Toby.
"You won't be able to see where you're going," she put in. "That's why the engines have fog lamps fitted on."
But then Spencer's guard blew his whistle and it was time for Spencer to go. "I'll prove to you that I can beat the fog," he boasted. "Engines like me always make it through bad weather." And he puffed away, feeling very full of himself. Emily and Toby watched as Spencer puffed out into the fog.
"What a silly engine,"
huffed Emily.
"You'll run into trouble soon,"
sighed Toby. Then his driver returned. "Come on, Toby," he said. "It's time to collect Henrietta from the workstation." This made Toby happy, but he was still cross with Spencer, so he puffed away without saying a word. Spencer rumbled happily along the line. He thought he was doing a wonderful job. His passengers were sitting in the coach and looking out of the window. All they could see was thick fog. "Ha! Silly Toby," he boasted. "This fog is no trouble for me at all." "Don't be silly, Spencer," said his driver. "This is the start of the journey, so we better look where we are going." But Spencer took no notice of this. He wanted to prove that he knew better than the fog. Then he heard a whistle. He looked around, but there was no one about. "Must be my imagination," he said to his driver. His driver leaned out of his cab window and looked. Suddenly he put a hand on the brake. "Look out, Spencer!" he shouted. "We must stop!" Spencer looked ahead and gasped when he saw an engine figure through the fog. Suddenly the whistle sounded again. Then Spencer heard a voice. "Stop!" Spencer's driver applied the brakes and Spencer slowed to a stop just in time. "What are you doing?" cried a voice. Spencer looked in front of him. It was Harvey. Harvey was surprised to see him. "This track is closed for repairs," he said. "That's why there are workmen here." Spencer looked and saw that the workmen were busy replacing the old rails with fresh new ones. The foreman came up to see Spencer. "You'll have to turn back," he said. "We can't let anyone through whilst repairs are going on." "Come on, Spencer," said his driver. Spencer groaned. He didn't like the sound of this at all. "Now I'm going to be late," he moaned. But his driver took no notice. He pulled the lever and Spencer was soon puffing back to the junction. When they got back to the signal box, the signalman came out to see them. "We need to get to Great Waterton station," called the driver. "Where's another track we could take?" The signalman thought about this for a moment. Then a thought came to him. "The only other track you could take is that track over there," he said. He pointed to an old track that turned to the left into some bushes. "That track doesn't look good enough for me," snorted Spencer. "No choice, Spencer," said the fireman. "It's the only track we've got." "I'll go and change the points now," said the signalman. So he went back inside and changed the points. Then the signal changed to green and Spencer set off for the old track. The signalman watched as they disappeared through the fog. Spencer didn't like this piece of track at all. The track hadn't been used for a long time. It was old and it was overgrown with weeds. "I wish I was back on the main line," he said to himself. He was now starting to get worried. The track led to some strange and funny shaped trees. Spencer looked all around him. He was starting to wonder where he was. "This is a very strange place," he puffed. "It's enough to make you feel scared." The fog made the trees, bushes and the buildings look spooky. The passengers in the coaches were not sure what to think. "What is this place?" asked the Duke.
Looks like something out of a book,
exclaimed the Duchess. "I don't know," said the Fat Controller, "but I hope Spencer has a reason for taking this track."
"What if there's a ghost here?"
shuddered Lady Hatt. The Fat Controller hugged his wife. "Don't worry," he said. "There's no such thing as ghosts. We'll be alright." Then Spencer started to feel tired. His fire was starting to look like it was going to go out. "I don't feel well," he puffed. "We'll have to stop to take on coal soon," said the fireman. "We can't go home without more coal." "But where do we stop?" asked the driver. "There's no water tower or coal bunker anywhere." Then Spencer looked ahead and saw a strange looking building coming up towards him. "Look," he called. "That looks like a station ahead." His driver looked and saw that Spencer was right. "That'll have to do," he decided. He put on the brakes and brought Spencer to a stop. Then, as the fireman was checking the fire, the driver went back to see the passengers. The Fat Controller opened the door to see what was going on. "Why have we stopped?" he asked. "Where are we?" "We seem to be lost," said the driver. The Duke and Duchess were now worried.
"Now what do we do?" asked the Duchess. "We can't stay here."
"Maybe I can help you," said a voice. Everyone turned to Spencer and saw a ghostly figure walking through the fog. It got closer and closer and was soon standing in front of the driver. "Is everything alright?" asked the voice. The Fat Controller smiled. "I know that voice," he said. "Is that you, Old Bailey?" "It certainly is," smiled Old Bailey. "Come into the station and I'll make you all hot drinks." Everyone agreed it was a good idea, but then the fireman came to see them. "Spencer hasn't enough coal," he said. "It won't be long until his fire goes out." "I'll telephone for help," said Old Bailey, "but first let's get you all inside." Everyone followed the station master into the station, leaving Spencer all alone. Spencer didn't want to be left alone. It made him feel frightened. Toby was resting at his home at Alsdale End. He was enjoying his nice long rest and drink when his driver ran to see him. "Spencer's in trouble," he said. "He's low on coal and he needs more as quickly as possible." But Toby was still cross with Spencer. "Why should I help Spencer?" he asked. "Serves him right for being boastful." His driver was stern with him. "But what about the Fat Controller, Lady Hatt and the Duke and Duchess?" he asked. Does it serve them right too? Toby felt silly after saying what he said. I'm sorry, sir, he said. We must help them, even if it means helping Spencer. That's better, smiled his driver. He climbed aboard Toby and they set off to the rescue. Meanwhile, Spencer was standing outside the station feeling cold and lonely. His fire was low and his coal supply was very low. His boiler was starting to feel cold and he could feel the fog swirl around his wheels. The Fat Controller and the passengers were inside the nice warm waiting room drinking hot cocoa and eating biscuits. Old Bailey was telling the Duke and Duchess about the time he had saved Henry and got his old station restored. The Duke and Duchess were impressed.
Maybe when the fog lifts, suggested the Duchess, we could have a look around the station.
A splendid idea, agreed the Duke.
I hope help comes soon, said Lady Hatt. I don't like this waiting around.
Toby shall be here soon with a coal truck, said the Fat Controller. Don't worry, he won't let us down. I'd better go and check on Spencer, said the fireman. And he got up out of his seat and went back outside to see Spencer. Spencer felt more and more worried with every minute that passed. He was sure help wasn't going to arrive. Then he heard a strange puffing sound. He looked all around, but he couldn't see anyone. What's that? He shuddered. Then he heard the sound of a bell. Spencer gasped. Who's there? He cried. Then he saw a glowing eye shine through the fog. Spencer gasped. He didn't like what he was seeing. He closed his eyes tightly. Help! He cried. Ghost! Then, it's all right, Spencer. Spencer opened his eyes and looked. It was Toby. He pulled up to Spencer with the coal truck behind him.
What's the matter, Spencer?
Asked Toby.
Did you think I was a ghost?
Spencer didn't answer. He felt quite silly. We've got the coal, called Toby's driver. Thank you, said Spencer's fireman. Let's get the coal into the tender, quickly. It took a long while to transfer the coal from the truck to Spencer's tender. Everyone helped out, and even old Bailey had a shovel he could use. At last, all the coal was put into Spencer's tender. The fireman put more coal into Spencer's boiler, and Spencer felt better at once. There you go, Spencer, said the Duke. Now you won't need to feel cold anymore. Then the Duchess looked all around her. Look, everyone, she said. Everyone looked and saw that the fog was slowly starting to lift. Then there was a ray of sunlight burning its way through the fog. The fog's lifting, cheered Toby. A while later, the sun shone and the birds sang. The Duke and Duchess were standing by the lake and were enjoying the views of the scenery. Then Henry arrived at the station. He was passing through the station with a train of coal trucks. He stopped beside Spencer. Hello, Spencer, he smiled. What's this I hear about you trying to beat the fog? Spencer didn't answer. Then Toby saw a chance to be cheeky. I thought engines like you always made it through bad weather, he teased. But it seems the fog beats you, grinned Henry. And he thought I was a ghost, chuckled Toby. I hope you've learned your lesson about fog, Spencer, said his driver. Fog is trouble, and you must always be careful. And learn never to say you can beat the fog, added Toby. Spencer felt embarrassed. His face went red, and he felt like the silliest engine on the whole of Sodor.